Hi everyone, my name is Neha and I'm a summer student for Sinai Foundation Canada. Today I'll be sharing some information regarding stress management as part of our mental health awareness project. To further add to what is already on the slide, these fight or flight responses produce physiological changes such as increased breathing, increased heart rate, and activation of the muscles to react immediately. Under truly dangerous situations, this response has been advantageous throughout human evolution, as it has prepared us to focus on the problem and react to physical threats or predators. However, in modern times, stress has become a complex subject, as its uncontrolled biological response affects our performance, mood, health, and relationships. Stress is often experienced when we feel that we do not have the necessary resources to deal with our various demands. We must recognize that stress is often as a result of simply thinking or perceiving that something may be a threat, when in actuality that is not the case. Stress management encompasses a wide spectrum of techniques and psychotherapies aimed at controlling a person's level of stress, especially chronic stress, usually for the purpose of and for the motive of improving everyday functioning. In general, we tend to respond to stress in two ways. The first is active response. Act proactively to solve an issue, for example, evaluating available options for improvement or simply seeking help. The second is passive response. Avoid acting on the problem to deflect feelings of discomfort. So in order to better respond to stress, it is very important to learn stress management so we can start having more control over our lives despite the different situations and circumstances. As there are multiple effects to the brain when under a lot of stress, we must remember that stress is a natural sensation and is not necessarily a bad thing. Stress tends to manifest an automatic response that generates a greater predisposition of attention and action in the face of a problematic situation. The impacts of these reactions depend on their duration and intensity in terms of the triggering of its negative health effects. To reiterate, a stressed individual is more likely to focus on the negatives, but it is important to pay attention to the positives. Remember that stress is something that we all experience eventually in the case that our demands are greater than our resources. For this reason, it is always good to evaluate all of our options and seek help when necessary. In order to maintain good relationships, it is important to improve the efficiency of your communication. The first one is aggressive. When a person expresses themselves roughly or rudely, pushing aside the opinions and feelings of others, considering them unimportant. The second one is passive. When a person cannot express their own opinions, desires, or interests. The third one is passive-aggressive. It's a mix of passive and aggressive communication. The fourth one is assertive. When a person can express their opinions and feelings in a firm but respectful manner. Assertive communication is the most effective form of communication. However, it can be difficult at times, especially when surrounded by aggressive personalities. In situations that cause us stress, pessimistic thoughts increase our perceptions of stress and start a loop that is filled with negative feedback. For example, thinking of the worst-case scenario and validating its improbable outcomes. Therefore, recognizing and reframing these negative thoughts will help us better cope with stress and reduce its effects that are negative. Many negative thoughts can influence and magnify stress, so we must gradually learn to know how to identify them in order to improve. The difficulty is that these negative thoughts can be very repetitive and seem persuasive. In order to reduce stress levels, we can monitor thoughts, practice inner dialogue, confront thoughts, avoid self-criticism, and think about our responsiveness. In terms of the definitions for perfectionism and procrastination, many times perfectionism and procrastination are closely associated. A perfectionist is likely to fall into procrastination as a refuge or distraction from the frustration. While it is true that most people want to do things right, it is one thing to feel the need to do something perfectly, and another thing to aspire to do something to the best of their ability, as long as one is aware of its possibilities and actions. A good practice to consider for stress management is mindfulness. Mindfulness consists of paying attention to the present moment without judgment or concern. Learning to be aware of the present will lessen the mind spin on the past or the future. Some mindful exercises to consider are the following: controlled breathing, mindful walking, visualization, and mindful eating. Lastly, we'll discuss the technique of gradual exposure. This means you're progressively exposing yourself to the problem through small actions and steps in order to achieve a certain goal. It also not only helps improve behaviors, but also helps improve thoughts and feelings. Keep in mind that this usually takes time, so be understanding with yourself until you gain more confidence in your resources to contrast your demands, responding in the best way. If you would like to learn more about stress management, we have created a free educational booklet for you to access. To find out more, you can visit our website, sinaifoundation.ca. Thank you for your time and for listening.